Well, hello everyone. We have cellist Jesse Christeson with us today. We know Jesse as principal cellist of the MSO. And Jesse, I think I have this right that it was from 2013 to 2016.
That's exactly right.
And you played the Elgar cello concerto with us, and one of my great memories is doing the Brahms second piano concerto with you. And Jesse's now making his home in Boston, where he's doing many things, but his principal focus is one of the four members who comprise the Boston-based Hub New Music Quartet, and I know we're going to talk a bit about that. So, welcome, Jesse. Before we get to what you're doing these days, I thought we would just start by kind of catching up with what you were doing just when we first got to know you. You were in Houston, I think, at that time.
That's right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Crafton. It's great to be here. That's right. The MSO caught me at a very transitionary time of my life when I had just graduated with my master's degree from Rice University in Houston, the studio of Norman Fisher, and I had been training to be an orchestral musician. And I happened to see the posting about the MSO pretty randomly. And I was driving from Houston to my hometown in Florida, and I decided to stop off in Jackson along the way to take the audition, and the rest is history.
My understanding is that you, I don't know if you were born there, but you grew up totally in Florida. You want to talk a little bit, because all of us who are younger and beginning their lives in music really want to know about how each story unfolds. So wondering what your story was. What was your upbringing? What was your education? Maybe a little bit about your first music education.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm from Florida, born and raised. I'm from Daytona Beach, for those of you who know it, the East Coast. Let's see, I'm a proud graduate of public schools, actually, K through 12. And I'm a pretty big believer and supporter in public schools for that reason, because I was told to really value my education and do well in school. And I also did my undergraduate close to home at Stetson University, which is in DeLand, Florida, where my mom is a voice professor. So that was a pretty cool thing. And my folks were from Alabama originally as well, so I had no qualms about coming and taking an audition in a place like Jackson, Mississippi, where it just kind of felt like a second home already the very first day I got there.
Well, and when you were here, I've got to say it was clear that you understood southernness, that you were a Southerner, and also I guess those of us who know you well realize, and those of us who played with you in the orchestra, Jesse, everybody has a wonderful, wonderful voice. And I'm sure that comes naturally from your mom, but also from being around the home, that there was a great deal of vocal music.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents, in addition, so both my parents are music teachers at the college level, but they were also church music directors in the Presbyterian church my whole upbringing. And so I like to think that's where I actually learned music, was out of the hymnal, actually, while they were busy doing their work, and I was mostly not paying attention and thumbing through the hymnal, I have to say, and sort of trying to learn music theory in that sense, in that way. I think singing is a vital part of, or at least in my sense of musicianship. I was a double major at Stetson. Actually, I studied with my mom the voice as well. And this is a theme I'll probably come back to a lot tonight, which is the idea of being a well-rounded artist or musician or person these days, I think is absolutely paramount.
Well, and I know we have a number of students who are watching already. I can tell that. And I know in the past we've had some that are either looking at going towards graduate school and making a decision about that, or even trying to decide if they should go into music or not. So before we go to we're about to head into our first performance, but before we do that, maybe just a word. Do you have any thoughts, any encouragement, or any thoughts about what they might be thinking about especially this time of year, fall, in getting ready for that kind of decision?
Yeah, Kraft, I love talking to college students or soon to be college students. It's a big part of my job with Hub New Music. And I'm sure, especially these days, with all the uncertainty in the arts and, perhaps high schoolers or college, about to be college students are probably wondering, should I even bother majoring in the arts or music at all? Is it just a waste of time or money or anything like that? And my line here is still the same, which is that I would encourage young artists and musicians to not be afraid to major in your discipline, especially if you're getting, hopefully you can get some good feedback from your mentor to let you know if you're at least in the ballpark. But I really believe that the important things to learn in your undergraduate, particularly, are how to be accountable to people around you, say an orchestra or choir or whatever, which is a great chance to do that. How to be responsible, like showing up to class on time, responding to emails, or how to be disciplined, which music majors, we have to practice every day. I'd say the music discipline is one of the most regimented discipline type thing you can do in college. So those are the important life skills for me that you should be learning in undergraduate, especially if you can go somewhere that you're not spending a ton of money and there's not as much pressure on you, like a state school or something like that. I was really glad that I stayed close to home and went to Stetson. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be good enough to be a professional cellist, but I really went after it and took it very seriously. And the thing is, for my master's, I could have gone a totally different way. In medical school, they love to hire former music majors and stuff like that because we have those team skills and those person skills. So I would say, don't be afraid to invest your time in the arts and also to get good grades while you're at it too.
Well, I don't want to go any longer without playing this first video. We thought a really great thing to do would be to share this performance that I'll just jump in and just say that it was a recording I think you've done in the last few months in your home in COVID land. This is the Sarabande we're about to hear now, played by Jesse in his home, the Sarabande from the 6th Cello Suite. Jesse, you've always had one foot, I think, in the orchestra world and another in the chamber music world, and it's certainly true now. I know you're playing in several orchestras around up in that area and also down this way in Huntsville. Um, but chamber music seems to be a special place, at least for us looking into your world. Not only are you amazingly passionate about it, but you just do it so beautifully. Can you just talk a little bit about that? I mean, about your relationship with playing chamber music?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really nice of you to say, Kraft, of course. Um, to me, chamber music is the ultimate sort of distillation of what we all love to do as musicians, whether you're a professional or an amateur. The music at its purest form is often about just sharing these really great moments with the people on stage with you, having a dialogue, and other folks just happen to be there in the crowd. As a matter of fact, I consider the best orchestra playing to be is essentially like chamber music just sort of stretched out, but where everybody, the best orchestras are the ones that are trying to play chamber music the whole time. So I'm, but I can't quite quit the orchestra life. It's such, there's something about the overwhelmingness of just being on stage with all these people and having such a big crowd there also, it's just, it's, you can't really replace that large scale stuff. But I also always try to keep some chamber music going to keep the skills up and stuff.
Well, and now one of your principal focuses is the Hub New Music Quartet. And I really like to kind of get into that. Some of our folks here may very well remember 3 years ago, Hub was here in Jackson on the recital series at Mississippi College. And I should also mention that as we came in and kind of got settled this afternoon at 5:30, it was music by Hub that was playing at that time. Very beautiful piece called Alcove. This is, and we're all going to hear it here in a minute, but I want to start by just talking to you about the fact that this is a really unique ensemble. I don't know that I've ever seen this combination of 4 instruments, 2 strings and 2 wind players, a flute and a clarinet, 2 woodwind players, in fact, and then 2 string players, a violin and a cello. And it's just a brilliant ensemble because of the way these timbres just blend in a beautiful way. And I can already see as a composer how it's just limitless possibilities. Talk to me a little bit about already your experience in the past 3 years of that ensemble.
Sure, Kraft. I have to say Hub New Music has been kind of a dream job for me. I have to say it combines so many of the things that I'm really passionate about. And I really happened to fall into it. I was just in the right place at the right time, really. So the ensemble, for those, I don't know if it was mentioned already, it's flute, clarinet, violin, cello. So, it's not quite a string quartet, not quite a wind quintet. It's somewhere in the middle. In classical music history, we don't really have a lot of tradition for this quartet. There was a group called the Seattle Chamber Players, who in the early 2000s sort of got the ball rolling on commissioning some works for this ensemble. And some of those works turned out to be really great. And my good friend, Mike Abatabile, who's the flutist and founder of Hub New Music, he started Hub as a school project at the New England Conservatory. And it started just as this modular new music ensemble that had more players, fewer players, depending on what they wanted to program at museums or bars or whatever would have them. But he stumbled on this repertoire by the Seattle Chamber Players and decided to hone it down to this quartet so we could travel, we could be a little lighter on our feet. We don't have a piano that we have to schlep around or percussion, which you would often see in new music with these instruments. And I happened to arrive in Boston right when they were about to have a cello opening that very year. And fortunately, I was available and really went after it. and it's been one of the best decisions of my career so far. I really caught them at the right time, just as they were getting a lot of more music written for them and the touring was kicking up and everything.
Well, and to that point, this group really, I guess the principal focus of this group is indeed to commission new pieces, new works by living composers. And I mean, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, because you're meeting a lot of American composers, but a lot of new composers and creating new pieces.
Sure. Yeah, I guess the name says it all, Hub New Music. There's not really any old music for us to play, so we're stuck with the new stuff, I guess. And for those of you in the audience who might be more traditionalist in your music tastes and stuff, I totally get it. Admittedly, I was not into contemporary classical music until well into my graduate school and then my time at the Tanglewood, and that's when I kind of got the bug, if you will. It's all about developing the relationships with composers who are alive and being able to create and have a dialogue about new art that's living and breathing and changing, and that is reflective of perhaps the exact time, that you're, perhaps very relevant stuff, content-wise. And so most of what we do is reach out to composers that we admire and that we're interested in working with, and create a dialogue and try to find a way to commission them, whether it's by applying for funds through grants or with universities or other awards of that kind, and trying to get composers paid, help artists make money, and sort of develop this community of new music where the composers are helping the musicians, who are giving to the audiences and working with local communities to see what kind of music they need, and ideally everybody benefits, and it's so gratifying, Crafton, it really is.
Well, when you're working with a composer who's often right there, I mean, the experience, you become part of the process. Really, it's amazing how fluid that process can be, where tempos are not set yet. I mean, you're finding the tempo, and sometimes even harmonies and rhythms and pitches aren't, and that's getting changed. So you actually have, as a performer, a hands-on opportunity to work with the composer and shape the piece.
Yeah, it's just, we get so much ownership of it, and, if, as you are aware, when you're on the podium, you get a Brahms score, and it's like, and you do what it says, you don't really get much of a chance. I mean, within reason, maybe you.
That's the issue. I mean, the performing music that is like this, as opposed to music that was written even 50 or 100 years ago, in a lot of ways, those decisions have been made. I mean, we've got a performance tradition, and you're locked into those tempos. Now you have a chance to create those traditions.
Yeah, we try to be really active in the compositional process, hopefully not overbearingly so, but we get drafts of the pieces that are being written for us, and we set up workshops with the composers, ideally in person, but I have to say these days, thanks to Zoom, we're able to have pretty frequent dialogues with these composers, and we are tweaking things to make them work better for us, and giving the composers suggestions of what we think is really going to be great for our audiences. And then at the end of the day, we often get to make the first recording of it as well, and sort of set the bar for anybody else who's going to play it next, which we always hope the pieces will get played a lot more, is the idea.
Well, we're going to hear music now by Hub, and let's set up this next video. Really, tell us a little bit about the piece Soul House. This is a 2017 commission, I think, a couple years ago now.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking, Crafton. Soul House by Robert Honstein was the first really large commissioned piece for Hub New Music. We asked for a 20-minute piece, and Robert Honstein came back to us with a 35-minute piece of music, which was basically a love letter to his childhood home that he grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. And so this was a piece that he had been dying to write, and we were dying for a big, hefty piece from a great composer, and it was the perfect marriage for us of composer and ensemble. Soul House is in 9 movements, and each movement refers to a location in and around his childhood home, often evoking memories of Robert growing up with his 2 or 3 siblings and a dog as well. And Soul House we just released on an album, which is available for purchase digitally. And it's our debut album, and we're getting some really great reviews of it so far. And we've even had the whole album choreographed, so I think you're going to see some of the dancing as well. We couldn't be more thrilled with this Soul House project, and I hope you enjoy it.
We're gonna list the link to where folks can go to not only the Hub website but also to purchase the album. And so this next piece is a piece of, I mean, I'll just echo what you said. Some of these titles are bay window, hallway, backyard. I mean, that's what these movements are. And I mentioned earlier the music we heard as we came in was alcove. Well, the next thing we're going to see is actually a video from that album. The piece is called Copper Beach, which I suppose is a tree. It's supposed to be a tree outside one of the windows. And the dance, I do want to recognize the dancers. It's Urbanity Dance, a Boston-based dance group. Here is Copper Beach. it's a perfect piece, really, isn't it, to emphasize how beautifully these timbres blend together in this quartet. It's and it's true of all the music that you guys have to play in this piece. It's like, and I didn't get Robert Honstein's name out. So important to get the composer's name out. That what he did in this piece is just really using the possibilities of this quartet so beautifully. I just want to. I'm watching the clock. I know we have another video to go, and it's more music from Soul House, and where I wanted to kind of go with our brief questioning here before we go to it is just to talk a little bit about the fact that so often in my life I've been in the last 30 years I've been working hard to try to reimagine what concerts can be, what classical music is, and I think a real hallmark of what Hub has done without even really being conscious about it is a real reimagining of what classical music is and what a concert performance can be. And it's certainly true of it wasn't true when I was a young boy in graduate school. We didn't have music like this, and I'm so glad that I've lived long enough to see a change in the world, because I think, especially in America, but in Europe and America too, so many of the emerging composers are doing this, where there's a real blurring of the line between film music and, frankly, in pop music and classical music. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Thanks. I'm so glad that you like the music. It's a really cool time, as I'm sure you could speak to it. I think it's a really cool time to be a composer. Because we have all these different types of music that you're allowed to draw from and fuse together in whatever way you'd like to. I think I see Ben Williams is here, and he's written a piece for me that fuses music of the Beatles and I think the Beach Boys as well, and puts it into a classical context. The question you really have to ask yourself is, do we even bother calling it classical music anymore at this point? And we've started to stray from that. And when I would first join Hub, we called it contemporary classical or new classical, but lately I've become fond of calling it concert music. Music which is meant for an event, to be experienced for the sake of the music itself, and not necessarily to be accompanimental to a film or something like that. Modern audiences, we are used to having so much stimulus from so many ways at the same time. So concerts have had to evolve. I believe the MSO has incorporated some film aspects, I believe, or at least some projection type stuff. I know they've been doing that in Huntsville and a lot of places to good success, I think. We like to think of our concerts as events, as an evening length experience, and it helps us actually package our concerts to more traditional classical music series, because we try to put these various composers together and unify them with a theme and present it all as something coherent and takes you on a journey, I think. And so when my friends at Urbanity Dance, expressed an interest in choreographing this piece, I just thought, why not? The more art and collaboration and community building that comes from that, I said, why not? And we've gotten a lot of great feedback about the choreography as well.
Well, I do want to talk about the choreography, but I just want to say again, we're living in a great time, I think, for composition. And it was not true in the 60s and 70s and 80s. That was a terrible time. No one knew what to do with contemporary music. And we know what happened in the 20th century. And it's like after 50 or 75 years, we found our legs finally, and now the rule is the kind of our composers, the emerging composers, the music that's being performed in this country now is by Missy Mazzoli. We did a piece by Missy here, by the way. We did a River Rouge Transfiguration this past season, and we've done Nico Muli, Timo Endres. I mean, these are the composers that are doing these kinds of things. And you guys are right on the ground floor of it. Real quick, whose idea was it to choreograph this piece? Was it Robert Honstein's?
Thanks for asking. It was my idea,
It
actually.
was, aha, great, so great. Because you know, by mixing art forms, not only are you fusing the blurring the lines of pop music and film music and classical music, but you're kind of blurring the lines of where this music belongs. Does it belong in a theater? Does it belong in an art museum? You know, so bravo, man.
Thank you. You know, modern audiences, those of us, you know, we're so used to seeing all these, especially in America, you know, which is a melting pot for so many influences and cultures and points of view. It's only right that our art should reflect that as well. I was living, actually, it was my very first apartment in Boston. It was an artist, cheap artist housing. And one of the folks that happened to be living there was Haley Day of Urbanity Dance. And we were looking for a reason to bring our communities together. Mm-hmm. And
You actually do a lot of this choreography.
Haley is a masterful choreographer, in my opinion, in contemporary, her type of dance and stuff. And I was just looking for an opportunity to be a part of her circle of artists and to bring her into mine as well. I hope you'll hear the word community from me quite a lot tonight, because that's what the arts are at its most fundamental. It's a community of people with shared interests and appreciations, and the arts don't happen without the community, including the audience and the supporters of, you know, of whatever arts organization you want to support. So Hub New Music always is trying to expand our community, to develop our relationships within those as well, and to see what kind of magic we can all create together.
Well, let's go to this next performance. This is another video from the same Soul House recording. This piece is entitled Landing, Landing from Soul House by Robert Honstein.
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys. I'm so glad. Can you hear me okay over there, Crafton and everybody? Okay, great.
Yep.
You know, maybe some of
You're there. Yep.
maybe some of our folks at home, you know, are thinking, hey, this doesn't sound like all that, you know, super contemporary music that I usually don't like or something like that. So, and admittedly, this is some of our prettier music in terms of more tonal and very major and stuff. But I just want to encourage you to never be afraid of going to, if you know, if the symphony has a new composer on there that maybe you haven't heard of, don't be afraid to go check it out and bring an open mind. One of my dear friends back in Jackson is Morris Reagan, who we've just had this lovely dialogue about how to approach new classical music. You know, and it's okay for you to like things and to dislike things, but we just want you to have your own opinion, and that's okay too. I also want to give a plug to my friends New Jackson, who are trying to also continue to find ways to blur the lines of older music and newer music with some traditional instruments as well. Don't be afraid of new art because just because it's relevant and new, you know.
I'm watching the clock. We want to go just a couple minutes to questions and answers. We do have 2 or 3 questions, and we may have some more from the floor. Can you tell us what's next for Jesse Christeson? Can you? I mean, I don't even know. I know you probably can't talk about what's happening a year from now, but where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, you know, the easy answer is that I would love to be doing this exact same thing. You know, 10 years from now, I've got this balance that I really enjoy where I get to play in orchestras and I get to travel with Hub New Music and work with composers. And ideally, I'd love to just click repeat on the whole thing for the next decade. But, you know, with the pandemic and the way things are these days, you know, every year kind of feels like a blessing and you never take the next season for granted. I'm sure you guys at the MSO are, you know, just as aware of that as me. And every orchestra and arts organization in America is having to grapple with things in their own ways. So we are just trying to seize the moment right now. We're continuing to commission composers as best as we can to get music written that's reflective of the chaotic times that we're going through right now. And, you know, at first it was heartbreaking when all of our tours got canceled and all of a sudden we had nothing to do. But I think for me and for my colleagues at Hub, investing our energy in getting relevant work for today's issues has been really gratifying and gives us something to do. And I have to say, we've been getting a lot of really good feedback from our audiences this season in particular. It seems like people are maybe disillusioned in some way or another, or questioning or searching. And a lot of folks have found solace in new art and new music these days. So we're going to keep going as long as we can. And we hope you guys do too.
Well, we're going to pass the baton over to Brooke. Brooke has been monitoring the questions that have come up. Brooke, the floor is yours to give some questions from our audience to Jesse.
Thank you so much for being here, Jesse. And I have a few questions for you. And this first one came to me a bit before tonight's meeting, and I thought it was really interesting. It says, I've always said that if I could be an instrument, I would be the cello because of the pure emotional tones that can be pulled from the instrument are so memorable and heartwarming. I would love to know how you chose the cello, or as a child, if you were forced to play, at what point in your life did you fall in love with cello?
Thanks, Brooke. That's a great question. I was first a pianist. My folks made me start taking piano lessons before I was old enough to really fight back on that. I was personally a little more interested in playing baseball than I was in taking music lessons when I was a kid. I was a trumpet player in elementary school, and I loved the trumpet because it's loud and obnoxious. But in order to go to the middle school that I wanted to go, that was slightly out of my zone, but I knew it was a really good public school, but I really thought it was a great school. In order to go there, I had to join the orchestra as my zoning variance. and I wish the story was more romantic than this. But honest to God, I was just a kid, and I thought the violin. I'd had some bad experiences with the violin, and I thought the bass was just too large and crazy. And I had never heard of a viola before, so that left the cello, as it turns out. And it's funny how those kind of little decisions in life that you don't make a big deal of at the time turn out to change your life forever.
I mean, you may say that story's not so romantic, but I think it's a fabulous story. And we are certainly glad that you fell into the cello in such a way. Here's another one for you. Tell us a little bit about your cello and bow.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see, I actually have it right here, just in case. This is my baby. It doesn't have a name or anything like that, but this cello was made in Italy, in Naples, Italy, in the year 1888. So it's exactly 100 years older than me, which I think is kind of cool. And I've just finished paying it off this summer. I've been paying for it since graduate school. I've been paying for it for about 7 years now, so it's finally mine. These other two cellos behind me that you can see are one's for electronics and one is for Baroque music. But this is what I use for just about everything else. The bow was made in Israel by a man named David Samuels. And I'm really fond of it because of how well balanced it is, and also how light, and I can get kind of bouncies on it. They're not cheap things. It's definitely been an investment. So I had to prove my worth through college and grad school before my folks would let me invest in them. But yeah, hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool story. How does the difficulty level of contemporary classical compare to classical music, in your opinion?
Well, it definitely depends on who you ask. For me, I find new music easier to play actually, because when I play the hits, especially when you play Mozart and classical music and Schubert and stuff, there's so much, I find there to be a lot of pressure to play that music really perfectly and spot on. So, whereas with newer music, people are just, composers are just happy to have somebody to work with. So I found that to be more accessible. The rhythms and the pitches that we tend to work with in really new music maybe are more complex and intricate and stuff, but it's just kind of like learning a language. And then once you become fluent, we become fearless. And I was always a math guy too, so rhythms don't scare me. There you go.
Very good. How has the pandemic affected Hub New Music?
Well, yeah, how has it not? I spoke to it a little bit earlier. We had a bunch of trips lined up when the pandemic hit in early March. We were about to go to Los Angeles, Hawaii, the Pacific Northwest. This summer we were supposed to go to Thailand. All those trips just got scrapped. And I mean, we've been looking forward to that Hawaii trip for years, as I'm sure you would imagine. And at first it's like, oh my God, it was, and but we managed to save a lot of our income and our concerts by immediately trying to make our concerts digital instead of going to travel, because the four of us can be together. We sort of quarantine together. And so we've just been doing all of our concerts at home in the studio and really investing in the video quality so that the concert quality is high enough so that people will enjoy it. And we have, perhaps much like the MSO, relied even more so on the community that we've built with composers, with presenters who present concerts and stuff, who trust us to put a good enough digital content together with our audience, and we try to meet our audience where we can. And we're really relying on the support and encouragement of our community to get us through this. And we're just kind of going to go from there.
Absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that your community has been very supportive. We've certainly seen that here in Jackson with the MSO. So it's great to feel like we're a value within our community and everybody is here to support us. I think there's just one last question, and it's an interesting one. It says, I often hear that a piece of music is only good if it's esoteric or alienates the audience. How do you respond to those people?
I think, let's see. Art should be boundless. It should be pushing the boundaries by its very nature. Art helps us to explore the corners of our feelings and our psyches, and to imagine what could be and what has been, and to be empathetic with all kinds of different characters, whether they're on the stage or they're behind the music or they're performing the music. So to put music into a very particular box of it's supposed to have this one effect seems awfully nearsighted to me. I think the same could be said for new visual art, new film, new dance. We at Hub try not to put our experience in a box and limit ourselves in any way like that. And I think particularly these days, when there is so much alienation in the world, and we might feel alienated from our surroundings or our world or whatever, I prefer to skew towards presenting music that maybe is a little bit more comforting and a little bit more assuring these days. So I would say that description of new music being esoteric and alienating would be awfully nearsighted.
Absolutely, I agree. This has been a really lovely conversation with you. I think we've all enjoyed it very much. We're gonna open the floor in just a minute, but before we do, I wanted to call everyone's attention to the chat feature if you're not there now, because we have posted some links where you can learn more about the Soul House album and Hub New Music, and we'd love for you to check those out. I also remind you that MSO's fall season continues. We have 2 more concerts. We are presenting concerts socially distanced. It worked really well the first time. You can see us again in concert at Thalliamar Hall October 10th or November 14th. And you can go to our website, msorchestra.com, to find those tickets. All right, I think at this time we can open the floor. If you have a question, we ask that you maybe just ask one, your favorite question of Jesse, so other people can jump in there too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse. Good to see you, Maria and Sylvia.
Thanks, everyone.
It's good to see you, Jesse. We miss you.
Oh, hey, Miss Sherry. I missed you guys too. I'm so fond of my time in Jackson. I still have my goodbye poster from the MSO, which I keep in my practice room at all times.
Good boy.
My dog is barking, but I'm going to say a quick hello. Good to see you, Jesse.
You too. You too. Oh, man, it's great to see some of the old MSO folks. I've got my M-Braves jersey over here on this cello. Mississippi.
Hey, Jesse.
Hey, Cheryl. Hey, you guys.
I miss you.
Oh, I miss you. I miss all of you.
I'm going to try to see you sometime in Huntsville, okay?
Please do. Come on over.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Maybe now's also a good chance to mention that Hub New Music was actually supposed to be playing in Jackson this month, but due to travel restrictions, we had to postpone that. We're trying and hopeful to do it if things have cleared up enough by then. We're going to hope to be there in April, and we'd love to see you all there. It happen to work out.
Hey, Jesse.
Yeah, hey there.
I'm Jean Cook, and I'm the one who grew up in the same church choir with your dad. And your grandfather was my music appreciation teacher. So it's really nice to hear the third generation of Christensen speak. Your family was so special to me. And your dad was a superb boy soprano. I don't know whether you know that.
I've been told. Thanks, Jean. It was so great to get that message from you. I've met a number of folks actually in the Jackson area who had interacted with my grandfather, who was a professor of music at, I believe it was University of North Alabama in
That's
Florence.
right. Yeah.
And I think my dad might have just popped into this Zoom as well, so he might have actually heard what you just said as well. But thanks.
Oh, I see his name now. Oh, it's so great to see him.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. And I remember when you performed The House of the Rising Sun in junior high and sang and played your guitar at the same time.
Thank you. I don't know if y'all can hear me or not. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, this is even better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't know I was going to get to embarrass my dad as well here today. This is great.
Sorry.
So do you like Boston?
Yeah, I love it. You know, it's about 80 degrees right now, so that part I wasn't quite prepared. That's when you see me wiping all the sweat off my brow. But it's so great to immediately, to see so many movers and shakers and to be in proximity with these people who are so inspirational has really, and this Jackson, Mississippi was the furthest place north I had ever lived in my whole life until I came here.
Whoa.
Exactly. So I wanted to just see how the other side lived a little bit, you know what I mean? But as I tell my friends often, I never rule out the possibility of moving back down south at some point if things slow down a little bit up here.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Jesse. This has been a wonderful conversation. We really appreciate you sharing Hub music with us tonight, and it was delightful to see you and so many familiar faces. We're going to leave it here. So I just say happy hour cheers to each of you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, everybody. Crafton and Brooke and Michael and everybody at the MSO. I just miss you guys so much. And have a great season and be tough.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.